Hello guys, welcome to another Quarantine School Special Edition. This one is interview skills, going to help you with interview skills in this one. For those of you watching this that are not part of my regular class, this is geared towards 8th graders that are thinking about their future and careers, jobs they may have, and how to make the most of what they're trying to do. So, there is a slideshow to go along with this. If you look in the show notes, there's a link to that. So, what's an interview? First of all, interview is a series of questions an employer is going to give an applicant and the applicant's answers. So like it's a back and forth conversation. It's a way for them to learn more about you, like what additional skills you might have and what social comfort you have. So if you walk in and you're just like really weird and nervous and you don't like look them in the eye, or you make them uncomfortable one reason or another, that's going to be something that they can tell from an interview. And then the best job fit for the company. Maybe you are the best VCR repairman in the valley, but they don't need a VCR repairman. They need somebody who can work on computers or something like that. So making sure that you fit what they need. And then finally, it's a way for you to learn more about them. It's an opportunity for you to get a feel. Are they going to make you uncomfortable? Are they going to be offering a job that doesn't fit your skills, even though they sounded like it might have been good for you? Something for you to think about. So you might need to get an interview for a job. You might want to get into a special class and need to interview or talk to the instructor or talk to the club advisor to be part of a club or a team, or even for getting an apartment. Sometimes you need to interview for those things, and these are skills that you can use for that. There are other types of interviews, like if you won a gold medal and a news outlet or a blog is trying to interview you. Those are not the interviews we're talking about today. We're talking about interviews mainly for getting a job. All right, before the interview, once you've got the interview, usually this happens after you have submitted a resume, you've filled out an online application, and brace yourself for all the resume building that we did. You'll probably also need to fill in online applications. I recommend you keep like a document so you can just copy and paste those things as you go, because you'll fill out many of those, and a lot of the things you'll have to say more than once. So you fill out the application, you turn it in, and you know they've got your information. They know how many years of experience you have. They know what you've done. You went babysitting, you were in the Boy Scouts, you had training in metal craft in 7th grade, something like that, right? But when you get into the interview, you're going to tell them more about that. They call you up, they say, okay, we'd like to bring you in for an interview. And you say, well, yes, of course. Things that you want to remember before the interview. Number one, confirm the date and the time. So while you're on the phone with them, write it down, make sure that you know it. The worst thing you can do, maybe not the worst thing, but one of the worst things you can do is to get off the phone and then say, oh, I know it was later this week, but was it on Wednesday or Thursday? I know I was supposed to be there in the morning, but was it at 8:30 or 9:30? You want to know the right time, because if you show up late, you've lost the job. If you show up too early, it's uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable, making someone uncomfortable, could lose you the job also. If you're on the phone and they're offering you the interview, it's a good idea to ask who you're going to interview with. Are you going to be interviewing with the president of the company? Or are you going to interview with the person who re-engineered their new protocol for something? Is it going to be somebody important that you can look up some information on so you know their background and know what they're going to ask you about? Or is it going to be somebody that is a coworker that is just kind of helping to help out with the hiring process? So that will be good information to know. Ask who you're going to be interviewing with. Sometimes you'll find out you're interviewing with other applicants. Sometimes an interview could be with one person behind the table asking you questions. It could be 2, 3, 4. It could be a panel interview where lots of people are asking you questions. Or it could be the other way around, where it's 1 or 2 people that are asking 2 or 3 applicants questions. So you're sitting next to somebody who also wants the same job as you. Research the company before you go in. You should know something about the company. Maybe when you placed the application, you only knew that they were paying $15 an hour and that's what you wanted. If that's what you know, then go in, do some more research, find out what the company is about. Oh, they have a new division that they're opening up in this other city that specializes in some new technology. You want to find out about that. If they ask you about it, then you want to be able to say, oh yeah, I heard about that. I have a question of how that would affect my job. Or maybe you have some knowledge that you could lend to that, saying, oh yeah, I actually know something about what you do in that field. So you should know something about that company. You should know your destination. They say, all right, be here on Thursday at noon for the interview. And you write it down, you're very careful, you know how you have the time, you have the date. You want to make sure you know the address, because some companies have more than one site. And even if you have the address and you know exactly what site it is, then how do you know which building, which room number, what door are you going into? Those are things that you want to know ahead of time, and if they don't offer that information to you, it's a good idea to ask. You don't want to be lost on your first day trying to make a good impression on them. You don't want to be too early, you don't want to be too late, you want to be on time, and that's what you're doing. Okay, day of the interview. Day of the interview. Guidelines for dressing. When you get dressed, you do not want to wear the same thing that you would wear to a formal dance. I can't think of any job that would be impressed by that. It would be an over-the-top type of silly gesture that may make them uncomfortable or may make them really wonder if you understand what the job is about. Guidelines for how to dress. Dress just a little bit better than the person who's going to interview you. And that may require some research. That may require finding out what type of culture there is at that job. Because if you dress up for a farming job and you're wearing a suit and tie, that may not impress them. In fact, they may turn off to that, thinking that you are overdressed for the job and you would not be able to perform some of the duties if you dressed like that. You want to dress up a little bit nicer to show that you are trying to show off. You're trying to impress them, but not so nice that you are wildly inappropriate for their social culture. In some companies, wearing a tie is a big no-no. They shun the tie, and if you wear a tie, they may really get turned off by that. So know a little bit about the culture so that you can dress appropriately and nicely, right? Bring resume copies. Okay, so as you put in the application, you probably uploaded a copy of your resume. Think about this. When you go in to interview, the person that's interviewing you may not have been the person that chose you to be interviewed. It may have been somebody else's job. Might have said, okay, Joe, I need you to look at this guy, interview him, and find out if he's going to be good for the job. And all Joe knows is your name. He doesn't know where you've been, he doesn't know your education, he doesn't know what classes you took in high school, he doesn't know that you single-handedly organized a creek cleanup for your neighborhood. He doesn't know any of that stuff. He may have a copy of your resume, but he may be interviewing like 15 people, so he doesn't even remember who you are. So you bring in extra copies. There's two reasons for this. Number one, you can give it to him so he can look at it while he's interviewing you, and he can get some ideas like, oh, tell me about this thing that you did in 2012 that you had some experience with. And it gives him an idea of something to ask you about. Also gives you an idea of things that, oh, you know what, towards the end of the interview I realized I didn't tell you about my skills in programming this particular program. You didn't realize that, so by having that in front of you, having the resume in front of you will help you think of things to say. Hopefully it's also going to be something that gives you a little bit of confidence. Looking at a list of all of your accomplishments is going to give you the confidence to say, hey, you know what, I do have things to offer. Maybe my mind went blank for a minute. You will be nervous. Maybe your mind went blank, but now you know what you can talk about. All right, arrive 10 minutes early. You don't want to be 15 minutes early, 20 minutes early, then it gets awkward and uncomfortable because you're sitting in there. A lot of these interviews may only be 10, 15 minutes long. So if you get there over 10 minutes early, you might get there at the same time as the person who's got the interview right before you. If you get there less than 10 minutes early, you get there and you went to the wrong door the first time, or maybe you got lost in the parking lot, or maybe you realized that at the last minute that you had to do something with your hair, so you're fixing your hair in the car, and then you get out of the car and you're running up to the door, and you get to there and you talk to the secretary and you say, hi, I'm out of breath because I ran from the parking lot, but I'm here for my interview. You're not making a good impression doing that. You want to be there early enough that you're calm. If that means that you drive up and you park in the parking lot and you sit there for a few minutes before you walk up, you do that, but you want to make sure that you're calm. Shake hands. Normally I would give you advice that you go in and you're shaking hands, and shaking hands with a confidence. You're leaning in, you're showing them that you are not afraid of them. In fact, you're eager to see them, you're confident, and I give them the expression, I give students the expression that it's like you're going to shake hands and you're turning a key in the door, because you want to give a firm grip and a little bit of a turn. And then let go, right? You don't want to hold on to it too long because that can be awkward. That was before COVID-19. Now we have COVID-19. It's up in the air. I've seen people talking about what's the right thing to do in case of an interview or a greeting. Do you try to shake hands anyway? Do you say, oh, give me some hand sanitizer first and then I'll shake your hand? Or do you wear gloves to the interview? Probably the best thing that you can do is to simply acknowledge, I would shake your hand, but I recognize the circumstances are different. If you at least acknowledge that, that lets them know that you're not avoiding it because you're unfamiliar with the custom. You're just going to acknowledge that that's something that you would normally do. Maybe you offer them an elbow bump, or you offer them a virtual handshake, or maybe something lighthearted like that would give them a smile, but that let them know that you are professional, and that normally in times that were not pandemic you would be shaking people's hands. Confident body language, and some of you are really going to need to work on this, because your whole life you've been, you're 8th graders, your whole life you've been taken care of by your parents. Everybody else is making decisions for you. Some of you guys are really shy, and I was really shy. I'm still pretty shy, but really shy, and you're not comfortable talking to people. This is the moment that you need to find a way that, even within this little box of the interview, you find a way to talk to people. You could be shy at other times, but if you walk in and you're looking down, you don't make eye contact, maybe you're slumped in your chair. Hi. Yeah, I want the job. You're going to give them the impression that you don't want the job, or that you're afraid of the job, or maybe you're not confident that you can really do the job. Your body language says a lot about those things. So you want to make sure that you walk in there sitting up straight, walking in like you have a purpose, like you know where you're going, you know what you plan to do, and you know what you have to offer, because you're valuable and you need to show them that. And if you need to say that in the back of your mind, I'm valuable, and they need to know it, pump yourself up, because this is the time. Make sure you smile. Not a weird, creepy smile, like just something natural. Remind yourself every now and then to, my camera slipped. Every now and then you want to, excuse me. Technology. Yeah, so you want to make sure to smile, because smiling sends such a good message that you're comfortable, that you're personable, that you might be somebody that this person would enjoy working with. Not just that you're capable and you can do the job, but you're somebody that would get along with other people. A smile says a lot about that. Eye contact. You may be the most competent person in the world, but if you don't make eye contact, they're going to wonder what's wrong. Why won't you look at me? Are you afraid of me? Are you mad at me? Are you hiding something? Some people interpret that as a sign of dishonesty. You don't want to give them any opportunity to interpret something like that. You want just to give them eye contact. And I talked about posture. All right. Now, we're going to practice some common interview questions. I don't want you to be surprised by any questions going into an interview. You want to be prepared. You want to feel prepared. You want to feel like whatever they bring at me, I'm going to be able to do this. And some people go into an interview thinking, whatever they bring at me, I'm going to be able to answer their questions because I know I'm a great guy and I'm good for the job. And they walk in and they get stumped by a question that has them sitting there thinking, I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what to say. Or they're struck with silence and they just stare at the interviewer because they can't think of anything to say. Prepare for your interview. Think about your questions. Think about your answers. Think about stories that you can tell, because this is your opportunity to show what a great candidate you are. Question number 1. This is one of the most common questions you get. Why should I hire you? I've got 6 other candidates that are going to come in for interviews today. Why you? And you can answer this a number of different ways, but let's start with the background. You do your research so you know a little bit about the company. So you can talk to your interest in the company. You can say, okay, well, I'm interested in this position because I want to develop my skill in that. You can talk about the job. It's something that I really am interested in. I'm trying to develop a career in this and I need some experience at the ground level. And right now you guys are all going in ground level, but you want to say that. You want to say that I need this job. I want this job because of this. So demonstrating your own personal need is hugely valuable. Now, if you are a specialist, if you have won awards for a certain skill that would benefit this company, yeah, you want to bring that up. You want to say that because that is going to show your assets, your value to the company. Your value to the company can either be that you have a skill to offer them, an ability to learn a new skill, which is an important thing also, or simply the fact that you're going to be a desiring employee because you want the job, because you need the job. They like to see that too. Have an answer ready. Question number 2. Why do you want to work here? Again, you can approach this in a couple of ways. You can say why you want to work there, that it's been a career goal of yours to work at this company because you really like their innovations in aerospace, and ever since you were a sixth grader, you were dreaming of becoming an aerospace engineer or something like that, right? Okay, that's believable. But if you're applying to some place that makes burgers and you tell them you've always wanted to flip burgers, they're not going to believe you. They're probably going to think that you're saying nice things because you want the job, but you're not fooling anybody. Try this. You say, I've heard good things from people who work here. Okay, so that's believable that's something that you want to work here because you've heard good things about this company. It doesn't matter if this company makes buttons or it makes a beverage or it makes airplanes. If you've heard things about that company, it doesn't matter what they do. That's a good reason to want to work there. And that would be something that the interviewer would want to know, that you are actually interested in. You could say it's close to home. That carries some weight. Convenience. But also maybe you could say it's close to home, but because I'm trying to make everything part of this community, I really believe in the community that I'm living in, and I like to have my place of employment close to where I'm living. Okay, that would be a good thing to do. Or more simply, I need the money for rent. Simply saying that you need the money for something, and something specific. Don't just say, I want to make a lot of money. Or I really want to buy some new toys. Isn't going to entice them as much as saying that I'm saving up for a specific purpose. I'm saving up money so I can go to college. I'm saving up money so I can buy a house. I'm saving money because I just need to pay rent for this month. That's going to be one of those things that the employer says, okay, this person needs the job. They're going to be reliable because they need the money. Question number 3. What's your greatest strength? Think of 3 words to describe yourself. Get a thesaurus out, look through a dictionary, I don't know. Come up with 3 words to describe yourself because you want to make it a quick description of yourself. Find something abstract, like I'm reliable, instead of something super specific like I'm a fast typist, right? If you're saying that you type really fast is a good skill, and they probably want that, but it's not the same as saying something abstract like being reliable. Well, any job I give this person, if they're reliable, I know I can trust that they will do it. Maybe they need you to load some boxes for a while. Well, being a fast typist isn't going to apply in that situation. Something abstract is going to be a lot more power to your interview than something that's really specific and concrete. Other words: honest, compassionate, efficient. These are all good words to use for your interview. Find words that would be helpful to that business. So if this business is specializing in something, think about how the words that you use apply to that business specifically. Be prepared to give an example of how that strength has been used. So say like, well, this one time I was working with a friend of mine, we were trying to do this one thing, and he really was impressed with how honest I was about the problems we were facing. That would be a fantastic example. It doesn't have to be work related. It could be interpersonal skills, something that happened with your family, with your friends, something where you were a consumer and you were buying something. Any type of story you can that demonstrates a value that you have, a skill that you have. Question number 4. Okay, so question number 3 was, what's your greatest strength? Frequently they turn that on its end and say, okay, now tell me, what's your greatest weakness? This is a trap. Be careful. It can be a trap if you don't answer it right, and then you end up saying, well, I'm always late for things, and I never do really quality work. And you don't want to say that. You don't want to say that. This is a good opportunity to show off values of you, values that make you a more powerful candidate for the job. You don't really want to tell them bad things. So don't say something that's a deal breaker, like dishonest or inaccurate. But 2 ways to approach this. Number 1, give them an example of a weakness that you have recently worked to overcome. So you could say, I was really disorganized for a while, but then I started using this app that puts all of my things on a calendar, and it gives me reminders, and it's really changed the way I approach things. I never forget things anymore, and I'm always on time. That'd be a great way, because you started off telling them some type of weakness that you had, but then you showed that if you have a weakness, you are the kind of person that goes out and finds a way to fix it. That's what you want to show. So that was the first way you can approach this question. The other way is to offer a weakness as a type of strength. For example, you could say, I have a real attention to detail, so sometimes I get working on a project and I won't leave it alone until I know that it is super quality work. In fact, I don't feel comfortable letting something leave my desk until that I know it's done right. And that is something that they actually like, right? So you're going to say that attention to detail is something that overwhelms you, but they're going to see it as, wow, that attention to detail means that this person is going to have quality work. Question number 5, tell me about yourself. The first time I had this one, I was thrown. I really was confused, because I'm thinking, well, let's see, I collect rocks and I like the color blue, and I was born in the city of... No, they don't want to know that kind of stuff. They want to know stuff that is going to be good stuff for their company. This is where our resume building comes in. And if you haven't already, go back and look at the resume building special edition video. But you have fantastic things about yourself. Even though you've never had a job before, you've done things that have shown your characteristics of responsibility, of leadership, of honesty, of trustworthiness, of perseverance, of tackling hard tasks and still doing them, of being reliable, and you want to show that off. So you need to prepare some things that you can say. So you know this question's coming because I told you. So you're going to think about, what kind of stories can I tell them about myself? So don't get stuck in humble mode. Some people will get to this point and they'll say, well, I don't want to say about that thing, that award that I got, because I don't want to brag, and they're going to think that I'm a braggart if I just brag about myself. But this is your opportunity. In the space of the interview, you got this little box here, it's called an interview. This is your permission to brag. This is your permission to say good things about yourself. And they'll understand that this is the time. If you do this all day at work and all day at home and you're posting it all over the internet, then they're going to think different things. But during the course of an interview, this is the time to brag. If you don't tell them, they're not going to know. Okay, so what to say? Come up with stories before the interview. Today. Do it today. Like, think of a couple of stories. Even before you apply for jobs, you should have some stories in the back of your head. And a brief story, like a paragraph long, that demonstrates something valuable about you. Look at your resume for ideas. Think of like, okay, this one thing here that I mentioned on the resume, I could turn that into a story to show an example of how I used that. Remember, just because you submitted the resume doesn't mean that the person understood what you wrote or even read it. Be prepared with 2 or 3 stories that you could tell as examples of your experience or skills. And depending on the job or the people or how the interview is going, you might pick one or the other, or maybe you'll have time for all of them. But chances are there's going to be a need for more than one that you'll be able to tell. As you're answering questions in the interview, watch out for the questions that they give you, because there's going to be a variety of different questions that are not on this video. But there are good interviewers and bad interviewers. Bad interviewers ask bad questions. I mean, there are bad questions that are just straight up illegal. Like, you know, they can't ask you how many children do you have, or you know, your race or your sexual orientation, things like that. It's totally off limits. But there are other bad questions, like yes or no answer questions, that don't help you. For example, say you're applying to work at a veterinary hospital, right? And they say, have you ever worked for a veterinarian? No. Okay, so they didn't learn anything about you with your answer. That question was bad. Do you have any pets? Yeah. See, if it's a yes or no question, you're not going to get very good answers. But you, as the interviewee, the person who's getting interviewed, you can turn those questions into an opportunity to make it a better question. So when they say, have you ever worked for a veterinarian? You can say, no, but my uncle is a veterinarian and I've always been really interested in the stuff that he does. And sometimes the stories he tells about what he does at work, I just can't get enough of them. That shows that you've never worked for a veterinarian, but now you've told the story about your experience with veterinarians. Do you have any pets? You could say yes or you could say no, but if you're trying to get a job at a vet clinic, you better have a story prepared to say, no, I've never had a pet, but actually I've done a lot of pet sitting. I've helped out with my friends who have pets. I watch pet videos on TV, and I'm always wondering how to take care of pet birds because that's something I've just started getting interest in. See, this is one of those things. No matter what the question is, if you turn it into something that's going to be interesting to them, that relates to the job that you're going for, that's going to be valuable. Tell good stories that make you look good. If you're coming up with stories right now and you're thinking about them and you start telling the story about that one time with your friend, and suddenly you realize that partway through the story is really more about your friend than you, and suddenly your friend looks really good and now they want to hire your friend, pick a different story or find a different way to tell that story so that you look good. So, bad interviewers ask closed yes or no questions. Good interviewers ask open-ended questions like, tell me about your experience taking care of animals, or what do you know about cats? So this is an opportunity for you to expand on your knowledge. Hopefully you get more good interviewers with those open-ended questions and fewer of the bad interviewers with the yes-no questions. But because you know now, you know how to handle a bad interview question, and you can turn it into a story that makes for a better interview. The last question of the interview is usually our question number 6 that we're coming up to. They say, well, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any questions for us? If you haven't prepared for this yet, then you get stuck. And I've been there. You say, no. Or you sit there and you think, And all you're thinking in the back of your head is I should have thought of questions before I came in, but maybe I was supposed to have other questions. And you get frustrated with yourself, and then the nerves get in, and then you get nervous, and then they're staring at you waiting for a response, and you're not sure, do I say yes, do I say no, do I just wrap it up? Because I know once I say, no, I don't have any questions, they're gonna wrap up the interview, and I don't want the interview to end because I don't think I've told them enough yet. This is your opportunity. Now, they could be asking, do you have any questions for us? But you're realizing, on question number 3, there's something more that I wanted to say. This is your opportunity. Go back, tell them the thing that you wanted to say. As far as questions for them, come up with some good questions. Here's some suggestions. What would I need to do to become a shift supervisor? That's a good question, because that means that I'm assuming that I've already got the qualifications to do this job well, but how do I make this a better job? How do I do better at this job than I start out at? That's going to be something that you hit the ground running, and they're going to envision you in that job. That's a good question. And again, it doesn't even matter what their answer is at this point, because every question you give them, you're giving them an impression of who you are as a person. What is a quality you need most in an employee? If you ask them what is a quality that they need, then you can counter that by saying, well, let me give you an example of how I have that quality. Let me tell you about that time that I reorganized the garage at my uncle's boat shop, and they were able to find all the parts that they needed so much better. That's the kind of thing that you want to do. You want to show them your value, and by asking them questions, you can bait them into giving you an opportunity for another story, another good story, a good story that makes you look good. Bad questions for the interviewer. Don't do these. Don't do these. How many days of vacation do I get? How often do you give raises? Are you on Instagram? Follow me. You don't want to do any of that, right? Because that's going to make it look like you're self-centered. Make it look like you are more worried about what's in it for you than what's in it for their company. And let's be honest, we know that you're in it for you. We know that you're in it for, you want to know how much money you're making, you want to make sure you know that you're going to get the right amount of vacation time and benefits and all of these things. Great questions to ask by a phone call to the secretary, a phone call to the company outside of the interview situation. The interview is there to make you look good. Asking questions about the benefits of the company is not going to make you look good. That was a mistake I made early on. All right. Again, like I said, that last question, once you know it's the last question, this is your opportunity, no matter what they asked you, to give them a new thing to say, oh, I forgot to tell you about this one thing that I think you'd be really interested in hearing. Or can I share with you my vision for what this company could do? Maybe just a teaser. Don't tell them your whole plan to revamp it, because that may be threatening to them. But you want to give them the idea that you have passion for this, and that you're going to enjoy, at least you think you're going to enjoy, the job that they have to offer. After the interview's over, you thank them for their time, and if it's not a pandemic, you shake hands and you say goodbye. Then after a day or two, you follow up. Not the next day, not immediately after. You don't call them that evening, but you want to give them enough time to process and enough time to absorb what you said. Sometimes they'll have made the decision before the end of the interview. Sometimes they'll have made the decision before you even walked in the door. Sometimes they have more interviews later that week for other people that couldn't interview on the same day. You just don't know. You don't want to rush them and make them feel like you're too eager, too anxious, and too much pressure for them. Give them the opportunity to think about you. But you don't want them to forget about you either. So that's why you're following up. You follow up an email or a phone call. You don't want to do a text. You don't want to do direct messaging on any social media. You want to do it as professionally as possible. You don't just show up to say hello. An email or a phone call. And you start out with something like, hey, I just wanted to follow up and thank you for the time yesterday. I appreciated you giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this. And then you say, there's something I wanted to add that I forgot to mention. And come up with something. And it could be anything, just some other detail that maybe you mentioned it, maybe you can add an extra level of experience. But the important thing is that you're adding something new that's going to make you look good. And as they're looking through their stack of resumes, they're going to look at your email or the phone call that just came in, and they're going to say, let's see, oh, that was this guy. And suddenly to the top of the stack, or jumped up to the top of the stack, just because in their mind, you have refreshed their memory of you. You could say, I had a question about something. But make it a really lightweight question, something that they're not going to have to go into detail. You don't say, I'm interested in the history of the company. How was it founded? No, you don't want to do that. But something more along the lines of, I was wondering if this job was going to involve me training people in the future, or is this something that would be something that I would be? Are there any instruction manuals that would help me with this? To understand company policy or something like that. Something lightweight that they can answer with 1 or 2 sentences, because you don't want to take a lot of their time, but you want to make sure that you're like extending that interview just a little bit to give them good thoughts about you. All right, some closing thoughts. I want you to remember that the interviewer wants to want you. They really do. When you walk in that door, they want you to be the solution to their problems. That they have a problem, they want you to be the end of it. They want to stop interviewing, they want to hire you, and they want to get you to work right away so that you can fix the problem that they have. You are the solution to their problem, and you know you're the solution to their problem because you're willing to take on the job. Remember, the interviewer wants to want you. You are the solution to their problems. Good luck, guys.